That's not
Okay, we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Live from the Sword Coast podcast. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly dungeon master this evening. Tonight, James and I are going to be playing some first edition Pathfinder, kicking off our campaign playing through the very cool adventure path Iron Gods. Now, this is going to be a prequel session. We're not actually kicking off the first adventure, Fires of Creation, until we have our other three players available. But both James and I were available tonight, and we both had a hankering for some gaming, so we're going to start with a prequel session. So maybe to kick this off here, James, why don't you tell us who you're playing, and tell us a little bit about her.
I'm playing Allure Valera Kolanova. She is a nanite sorcerer. She's a tattoo artist and a hero card reader.
That's right. So what does she look like? Can you give us a description?
She is average build, 5'5". Her hair is from a distance it looks white, but as you get closer you can see sort of a multi color hue to it when the light plays off it. Her hair is almost like a very fine fiber optic cable.
Love it.
It's like it's got that feel where the light goes through it, and at the ends of her hair it light up like the ends of fiber optic cable.
That's so cool.
She's got tattoos all over her. Some of them look like circuitry. Others have been, I guess, covered over or enhanced in ways with the tattoos, just to cover it up a little bit more.
Okay.
She's got tan skin. Very attractive,
and personable as well too. I mean, Charisma 19 is
yes.
She got everything working for her. Yeah.
She's a people person.
So let's when we talk about the setting and stuff like that, let's open up with a cutscene. And this is James for you alone, because I'm only doing this cutscene once. If the other guys want to hear this, other guys playing the campaign, they can come back and hear it again. Our scene opens in this. Let's make sure we're broadcasting here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are. I can mute myself. Yep, we're broadcasting. Cool. So what our scene opens on is a scene of rolling barren hills. And in the middle, or the low point between two of these hills, there are a bunch of hide tents that are thrown up. It's early morning. I guess it's the camp is fairly active, and we see that there are a bunch of people, milling around in this. The camp is made up of a bunch of hide tents. These are clearly nomadic people. They're dressed very simply in these sort of like hide or leather-made clothing. They're carrying crude but looks like very effective kind of weaponry. They all have very dark hair, light skin, and very, very light eyes too, mostly blue. But sitting near the fire, you see, as we're kind of going through, everyone sort of, as is common in this kind of tribe, everyone has their own task that need to see to. And the only person amongst this group of maybe about 100 or 200 people that is not working is this old woman who is sitting around this fire, leaning on a cane and looking down sort of idly off. We can't tell what she's looking at because her eyes are completely opaque. She has no pupils, no irises. And while this bigger guy comes walking over and touches her on the shoulder and says, "Grandmother," and she looks up, and he hands her a bowl and then takes her hand and puts her hands to the bowl so she can see it. Clearly, she cannot see, or she can feel it, rather. Clearly, she cannot see, and this is not the first time that this person has dealt with that issue. He says to her, he sort of goes about his task and whatnot, and she sits and eats while everyone else sort of muddles around. Our scene cuts to later, same camp. It's now dark, and the moon is rising, and everyone is sort of sitting around the campfire, and the same big younger gentleman who we saw hand the food to grandmother before comes over, and the whole tribe is sort of, you know, around the same campfire at this point, all, or like a series of campfires, I suppose. And they're all fairly jovial. Like there's some singing maybe, and there's some laughing and stuff like that. And the man comes over to the blind woman again and says, "So today?" And she says, "Not today." We then cut. Morning comes, we see them all pack up all their stuff, and they fit everything onto their horses. All of their stuff fits either onto their horses or onto the onto the various carts and whatnot. And we see that on the outskirts, while most of the tribe is doing this stuff, we see the same younger man, big, muscular, and grandmother, and they're on the outskirts of the camp. He's leading her along, but she seems to be walking along pretty well on her own. It's more that she's needing him for support because she's very old, rather than that she can't see. She walks up to the top of the hills and stops, and then looks out. Again, I mean, she clearly can't see anything, but she still seems to be looking out and seeing something over the hills. And then she gestures to the young man in one direction and says, "There." And we can see that there's a, you know, there are a series of more steep and craggy kind of mountains off in that direction, or hills. And we then cut and see that the entire caravan is moving in that direction. The whole train of 100, 200 people, and full families, you know, men, women, children, elderly. But at the front is grandmother and this man, both riding a horse, and, you know, trotting along. We see a couple more scenes of this where clearly this has been going on for some time, and every morning we see grandmother lead out, and then we see the I guess grandson accompanying her. And then we see this another picture of the same camp in a very similar sort of collection of or valley between or depression between different hills, and it's night. And there's a big full moon that's rising above the camp, so we can see everything. There are only, you know, a couple people who are sitting or making their way around the edge of the camp. You know, the night watches to keep this their tribe safe. And then we hear a cry, "Ah!" A woman's cry. We see then grandson come rushing out of a tent and racing over towards another, casting the flap aside. He runs in, and he sees grandmother sitting up in bed, her hair wild, all white, you know, like almost like a tempest of snow, I guess, behind her. And she says, "Grandson, we must move." He comes, and the whole tribe. We then see this panic of everyone sort of collecting shit up, and you can see there are some who are sort of muttering and like looking at grandmother, and then but for whatever resentment that the members of the tribe may have towards her, they're still following her directions. We see all these, you know, the entire caravan pack up and by torchlight start making their way, you know, into the hills, which is obviously incredibly dangerous, right? Like, I mean, no one wants to be hiking through the dangerous foothills anywhere in the dark, but nevertheless they go. And it's about or rather, you're not really sure how late it is. The one side of the eastern sky, I suppose, it has a bit of a glow to it, that pre-dawn glow, as they're making their way along. And then grandmother, again at the head of the caravan, pushes her hands up, and she hops off the horse that she's on. Grandson does the same. She walks over, and as she's walking, she drops her staff and seems to be wrapped, like staring up at the heavens, looking, and her arms are going out as if ready to embrace or catch something. Grandson comes running after her because she seems to be, like, for an old lady, she's moving very quickly and having no difficulty with terrain. "Grandmother, what is it? What is it?" And He's about to ask again, but then there starts this low rumble. Not like thunder, because thunder sort of has that pealing, roll to it. This is just a solid roar. And they look up, and that eastern sky is getting so much brighter. Or rather, sorry, it's not the eastern sky, it's the western sky. The western sky is brighter, which troubles everyone because the sun is rising, or this light is coming from the opposite side. It's as if the world was turning in reverse. And there's this, what at first is a flickering light in the sky, gets much brighter very, very quickly until it becomes like as bright as what a midday sun would be, and even brighter. This sun is, or this bright light and rumbling and roaring is almost something they can feel in the back of their teeth. It's so loud. But that's nothing compared to when the light suddenly seems to streak down and collapse somewhere far off in the western horizon. There's this rumbling and screeching sound, and the earth itself seems to roil in response to this fiery brand slamming into the western horizon. And a massive plume of dust and smoke and cloud seems to be cast up, casting or throwing the western sky back into darkness. Grandmother has fallen to her knees, and the stars that were still present in the western sky, the ones that were burned out or blocked, I guess, or hidden by the brightness of this wrong sun or false sun, now that it's gone dark on that side again, you actually can't see any of the stars anymore. All the stars, and there's slowly a cloud that's traveling from the west, and it is consuming the stars as it goes. As this cloud, this hungry blackness crawls its way across the sky, grandmother turns to grandson, her eyes heavy with tears, and says, "It has come. I saw the darkness. The darkness is here. I hope only that I have taken you far enough." And with that, she collapses to the ground, her old form suddenly seeming much, much older, much more frail. And in shock, looking over down at her grandson, can tell that life has left her body. Our camera pans back away from this group up further into the sky, and we can see that hungry darkness is spreading along. And as we get closer, as it gets closer, you can see it's actually this massive dust cloud. We cut through the camera, sort of slams through this dust cloud. And as it does, it goes, down, and we see that there's this massive burning furrow that's been cut into the very earth itself. We can see splintered and broken trees that have been reduced to flinders in the course of this. And the width of this gap, of this wound, is possibly a mile. Like, it could be the width of a massive river. And as we pan down and follow this scar in the earth, this burning scorch mark, we find twisted chunks of metal, massive things, larger than the most grand castle that any king or duke or emperor could ever ask for. And as we pan down into those, the metal, however, is twisted and broken, cracked and shattered. And deep within one, we see this row of almost like an odd-shaped egg with a opaque but somewhat translucent material on them. And there are orderly rows of these things all the way along this massive corridor. There's kind of lights are flashing, sparks flying out. There's small fires that are burning in some. And of this countless rows of strange glass-like eggs, we see a flickering, and a light comes on inside one of them. The music rises dramatically, and then we see our title sequence. Boom! Iron Gods! And we cut to this scene. James, what you see before you is Allure Valera's hometown of Torch. Now, just to canvas, I know you know this, James, but for the sake of the folks at home or for our fellow players, Torch is a community that is located in kind of near the center of Numeria, the land known by the inhabitants and those elsewhere as the land of falling stars. Torch looks pretty much exactly like you see there. There's the giant mount that's in the middle of the town, and roughly about 100 years ago or so, that enormous purple-colored plume of this brilliant, unbelievably hot fire went stabbing off into the sky. And around that, the community of Torch developed, largely to try and work the sky metals, the various near indestructible metals that are found scattered amongst all of the land of Numeria. This was one of the only fires that seemed to burn hot enough to actually work those metals. So since that time, this community has grown up, and this is the community that is your hometown. I'm gonna hit refresh here again because I lost your camera.
That's funny because I lost my thing on the right-hand side.
You lost the, which thing? Your tab?
Yeah.
Oh, did you hit refresh?
No, I didn't. Oh, there we go. I don't know where that came from. Okay.
Yep, now we're back. Okay, so this is Torch. Some of the other features. So there is the big mount that's there. I think yeah, you guys have seen a map of this. I just don't think you know what's necessarily in Torch. So the Torch itself is atop of Black Hill, and what happens basically is people who want to work at the metal workers, they hike their way up around that winding trail all the way up to the peak where the Torch operates. And then what happens is at times the Torch, what people have found over the decades of working here, is that at times the Torch will suddenly flare up. Normally, the heat only really manifests like slightly above kind of 7 or 8 feet tall, but sometimes it'll flicker and flash, and then suddenly it'll burst out with heat. So what they have to do is basically everyone's forge that they use to work with sky metal, it has to be set up on a portable kind of basis, so that when they have one person whose job it is to keep watch, and when they see the flickering of it, they sound like a drum, and then, or not a drum, it would be a horn, because a drum would drown out with the ringing of all the hammers. They blow the horn, and then everyone knows to pull their ship back. It'll burst out, and as soon as it's safe again, everyone moves back in and gets back to work. Other important landmarks here, this big thing right here, that is a place called Crowfeather Palace. And Crowfeather Palace was something that was built by your mentor, Connor Bain. And the reason it was built is because, like a lot of the waters in Numeria, the Weeping Pond, which starts higher up here, At first, the headwaters are up here, and then it flows down a little creek into this big pond here. It's polluted by these bizarre fluids that can, at best make the waters of Numeria unpleasant to drink, or at worst make them incredibly dangerous and perhaps even lethal to drink. Imagine, consuming potions that have some random effect on you. It's rumored that there are, well, not rumored, you would have probably met some people who get addicted to that. They become addicted to the various fluids that can be consumed, and they will spend their entire lives around one pond or one bend in a river, going to town. What Connor Bain did is he manufactured this giant, basically like water purification plant. So this makes it so that the water is free of any unsafe impurities, and makes it a little better tasting drink too.
Sorry, what was it? It was called Crow Cutter?
Crow Feather.
Oh, Crow Feather.
Yeah, Crow Feather Palace. And the reason it's called that is because this is called Crow Feather Lake. The Weeping Pond is up here, and this is Crow Feather Lake. Another place that will be of importance for you is, now your character, Allura, she is Parisian, and her family, like their people, obviously venerate Desna, the goddess of dreams and travel and fate, I think. But Desna is not really worshipped here. This is sort of this whole region. It's not the predominant faith. The thing that you're more exposed to, at least in town, and you hear people, give thanks to and request benefits from, or sort of like blessings from, is the goddess Bry. And Bry is the clockwork goddess. Her temple is located right here, where that yellow dot is on that thing. Bry is the clockwork goddess, and there are two people who basically run that temple. One of them is one of your friends, or someone you know. It's one of the luminaries in town. I'll switch over to the NPC list here. And that is Joram Kite. And Joram is, where is he?
Oh, there he is.
Oh, near the top. Yeah, there we go. So Joram is an old guy, human, who has been here for longer than you have. You've only been here since you're like, I think, early teens, right?
Possibly. Depends on when they arrived and how long it took them. Because she contracted the fractal etch.
Yep.
Yeah, when she was like a baby. So I assume like.
Oh God, then you've been here, yeah.
Her whole life.
Longer. But yeah, if you were that young when you don't remember a time when you didn't have fractal etch,
yeah,
then yeah, you would not know any difference. So
as far as she's concerned, like we've always lived in Torch.
Yeah. Okay. So Joram is one of the ones who has helped you. You learn that both Joram and Connor you can see over here.
Mm-hmm.
And in the movie version of our campaign, Joram Kite is played by Ian Holm. Bilbo.
Oh yeah.
And an old Ian Holm, like old Bilbo. And Connor Bain is played by a younger Liam Neeson. Connor's young daughter, or young ward, is this girl named Val Bain. And Val's a little bit younger than you. But Val is she's his ward because, I mean, clearly Connor is, it's not, I shouldn't say it, I don't know what ethnicity he is, what human ethnicity, but you know that Val is Kelid. And Connor is not. So whatever no one really, like a town like Connor's been such a boon to the town. no one really inquired too much as to how he came to adopt this girl. They just accepted her as his daughter. He refers to her as his daughter, but they're clearly not blood related. In the movie version of our campaign, Val Bain is played by a younger Chloe Grace Moretz.
I don't know who that is.
Hit Girl.
Sorry?
Hit Girl.
It Girl?
Hit Girl from Kick-Ass.
Nope.
You ever seen Kick-Ass?
I may have. I don't recall who's in it.
Okay. I'm trying to think what else she's been in that you might have seen. I'm
not a good one to be playing the who plays.
Okay, that's fine.
Movie.
I'll send you a link to who's playing her. So anyway, but Val, there's a picture of Val, and it's Chloe Grace Moretz who would play her in the movie version of our campaign. The reason I wanted to introduce those three people to start with is because those are people who are pretty important in your life. Joram has he's the local town priest, and he is he's the center of sort of religious life in Torch. While you and your family may still make blessings to Desna, you're probably the only ones in town who do that, because it's just not it's not a goddess who has a big presence here.
The Allure more pays lip service, isn't really devout, more of a lay person.
Okay.
It's her father that's the religious one.
Yeah, that's what. Okay, that makes sense. So I mean, she's got her interests seem to be more into like technology and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Connor is basically served as a mentor to you and to a number of other younger people in town, people you grew up with, including an android named Error, who has an unusual ability to change parts of his body that he seems to be developing and learning more about in a time that you've grown up in Torch. And you also met, I'm trying to remember what the other characters' names are here, Oland, an Oland Deep Delver, who I'll show you this guy's picture here there, James. Here we go. Come on, Oland, load up. Boom. Oland is a dwarf who is part of the Deep Delver clan, which are associated with the Dolga Freddard. Dolga Freddard is the most influential dwarven woman in Torch, and she, I mean, I'm not sponsored, but it's likely Oland was taken on as a what do you call it, as an acolyte to Joram Kite. Partly because of her influence. So Oland is someone you've grown up with as well, because he is a worshiper of Bry, and you guys are both going through the same kind of, you're around the same age, and his Torch is just not that big of a, that's not true, you're not the same age, but you age up to a point where he was, at the part of, or stage of his life which is the dwarven equivalent of like the early adulthood. Brand's character, I don't remember his name, so we'll have to sort of hold off on what his name. Maybe he's in. Hold up, maybe he's in my hero lab. That doesn't really matter.
She grew up with Oland.
Yeah, you grew up. Oland is a dwarf, which means he's probably an adult. Like, he hasn't changed at all in the time that you've known him, but you've grown up around him. Oland's from the time because remember, like, dwarves live, I think young adulthood is like 90 or something like that for a dwarf.
Oh, so she might think he's like an uncle or something.
Yeah, you would have thought he's an uncle, and and he's got a bit of a connection to. I think Steve said that he's got a connection to you. So there's some kind of thing between a relationship between Oland and Allura, and we can explore that when Steve's on. And then Brent's character, whose name I can't remember right now, his character was around your age as well. His family's not from here either. They came from somewhere to the east, a place called Scrapwall, and he, like you, has some unusual abilities, like both unusual physical characteristics, and like his eyes are all white, and he works magic in a very weird way. At least not a traditional sort of mage way.
Ian Guznard, I think.
Ian Guznard, right. So Ian and his family is one of the sort of bigger influential families in town. And because Connor is one of the influential sort of, another influential person in town, you guys are sort of like the children of the, important mucky mucks in town, who are seen as like the next generation of leaders for Torch. So it's you, Ian, Error, and Oland. You're also friends. Remember we were talking earlier today about or maybe it was yesterday, about your character having a friend who was around her age, where there was a boy they were interested in or something like that. Right. So her name is Amelia Otterby.
Amelia,
yeah. With an E, not an A. And Amelia is the daughter of a woman named Basalundi Otterby, who is arguably the most important merchant in town. She's organized a number of the craftsmen, most of the craftsmen, in fact, into sort of an organized trade union type thing. So you think of kind of like a local version of the wheat pool. Yeah, and that has benefited the various merchant or artisans and craftsmen in Torch for having a better and more consistent sort of income from the trade that goes out. Because one of the things that there are a variety of small farms and orchards and stuff like that are around in the vicinity of Torch itself. But the primary export from here is worked goods that are made out of that sky metal, out of the various adamantine and other strange glaucite, other strange metals that have fallen from that are said to have fallen from the stars centuries, if not millennia ago. And Torch is one of the very, very few places where you can actually work that stuff. It's also benefited because one other signature presence that you hear about and have likely seen maybe once in your life is the Technic League. No, that's not true. You probably see them once every year where they collect taxes. But the Technic League is a consortium of secretive mages who have a advanced level of knowledge of the various secrets and technology that lurks in the ruins of Numeria. They do not have a significant presence in Torch, in the sense that they don't have any. They'll show up and collect taxes, purportedly under the auspices of the Black Sovereign. Like, the Technic League is not technically the ruler of Numeria. Technically, the ruler of Numeria is a Kelid tribesman named Kevoth Kul, I believe is his name. Mm-hmm. And he's called the Black Sovereign. He's the leader of all the tribes of the Kelids, kind of like the Khan of Khans type thing. But rumors say that he's sort of, spends his days in a stupor, drinking these Numerian fluids on his glaucite throne. And it's really the Technic League who feed him these fluids, who really run things. I mean, it's not the agents of it's not Kelids who show up in town to demand taxes. It's the Kelids or the Technic League, and they're very. You've heard that they can be extraordinarily dangerous. Think of the Soviet era secret police. You can go most of your life and not have any issues with them, but they're always a presence. They're always going to be, lurking in the backgrounds. They're always a consideration when certain developments happen. Like, in particular, if substantially interesting or unique Numerian technology is uncovered, it's usually not long before some of these wizards, techno wizards, show up and claim that it's the property of the Technic League. And if you dispute it, if they don't kill you, they'll take you into possession. Now, Conair has been
like they have spies or collaborators in Torch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and whether they have them in Torch or not is not clear. It's not clear who would be the spies. But what's happened, because you've got that really unusual, the fractal etch didn't kill you. It instead manifested these unusual magical abilities. And Brent's character Ian has likewise some unusual technological abilities, as does Error. He's kept you guys sort of not hidden, but they're making sure that when the Technic League is in town, that your tattoos aren't clearly displayed, that you don't work your magic that makes the tattoos glow, when they're around. They make sure that Error's unstable physical nature isn't made apparent when they're around, just out of abundance of caution. They may not do anything. They may at worst invite you to join the Technic League, but they just would rather what you remember as a kid, Connor sort of telling your parents, is that this is sort of an err on the side of caution thing. It's better that we don't run the risk of them wanting to take you away and do Lord knows what. You've seen people, or there's one person that what's his name, that Error told you about. There's apparently a half-orc who claims to have been or rumors at least say that he was captured by the Technic League at one point, but he has this gigantic arm that is said to be made completely of sky metal. And it's clearly a mechanical kind of construct. It's not like a natural extension of his limb. It's something that he, either has been grafted onto him, or that was somehow he grafted onto himself somehow, and then they took him and experimented on him. But he plies the Southern Sullen River, which is sort of a way of still actually conducting some business, but staying as far away as you can from the Technic League. I'm giving a lot of names out here for different places there, James. Let me switch over to the map of Numeria, and I'll just give you a sense of where we are here. So right in the middle, this is Torch, where I'm pinging right now. And there's Black Hill with the giant, not colored, but the violet flame jetting out from the top. The south is a relatively free town of Hadrothakados. Hadrothakados is a place where it's probably the place that if you have traveled anywhere else in Numeria, that's probably where you've been, because that's where there's some. It's a larger town, which means there's more access to other goods. It's closer to the River Kingdoms and another kingdom called Ustalev, so it means that it's got more goods coming directly from those two areas going elsewhere. To the southwest of Torch, there's a place called Yedenve. Yedenve, you've again been encouraged not to go to. What you've heard is that there are some very radical worshippers of Erastil, a god of home, hearth, and kind of like agriculture, who take a very, very aggressive anti-technological approach. It can somewhat be understandable because Yedenve is fairly close to a region known as the Scar of the Spider, where all sorts of really horrible shit that seems to be something that fell from the stars. That those things have threatened that town, so it's sort of understandable. But it means that androids or anyone with any kind of obvious technological use or technological abilities are extremely unwelcome. To the northwest is Starfall and what's rumored to be the Silver Mount. The Silver Mount is the largest known Numerian ruin. It's said to be this gigantic, strange sky metal structure that is said to have fallen from the stars, which gives obviously the city its name. Starfall is the seat of the Black Sovereign and the home of the Technic League. Scrapwall I mentioned as well. Scrapwall is where Ian's parents are said to be from. There are other communities up north, Chesed and Greymoor, but we're not going to talk about those. Lackthroat, we're not going to talk about those because they're just, you have not traveled north of Gorham's Scar. The big mark right across the center of Numeria there.
Oh, that flat one?
Yeah, that is known as Gorham's Scar. Gorham is the, it's known as the First Blade Path. And Gorham is the Lord of Iron. He's the god of war. And as a god of war, Gorham is neither good nor evil. He simply is. And what's said is that in time, when the gods actually walked the earth, Gorham took his mighty sword and dragged it across, as he made his way across the length of Numeria, and left that furrow, that massive mile-wide furrow along the northern border, or north of Torch, bifurcating the region into north and southern areas. In the plains and the hills that surround Torch and make up the rest of Numeria, across those plains ride the Kelid people, the dark-haired, white, very light-skinned people that populate the most of Numeria. I'm trying to see if I've got a picture of what these guys, the Numerian, the Kelids look like. I don't have a handout here, unfortunately, but oh, actually, hold up. Do I? No, that's an NPC. But I can show you what I think is a pretty cool picture of some Kelids that come from the eastern regions of the Numerian plains. One second here. Or of Numeria, I should say. Selling Hills. Where are they? Where are they? Yeah, I love that. There you go. There's some.
Yep.
Kelids at work. So the girl who is the barbarian in the core rulebook.
Okay.
Her name is Amelia. She's one of the iconic characters. She is a Kelid. And I think she's from Numeria, actually. I might be wrong about that. She's maybe from the land of the Lenorn Kings or the Mammoth Lords. But she's her look, that sort of savage, dark hair, light skin. That's what Kelids look like typically. So
they're light of skin.
They're lighter skinned. Oh yeah. They're
Figure
kind of
for wanderers, you'd think they'd be tan, but
yeah, Kelids, they kind of make them like, I mean, they probably have fairly tan skin, but even like the tans are probably more like ruddy, like pinkish than turning like a dark, mahogany kind of tan. The Kelids are sort of the stand-ins for the Cimmerians, is the way I've always read it. So like, and I just go with like, Conan's sort of look, which is dark hair, light skin, pale blue eyes usually. Mm-hmm. So where our scene opens is with you waking up. And you kind of, you at this point live with your, is it with your parents or with your aunt?
Aunt.
Your aunt. Did your parents carry on or what?
Once once it became sort of apparent that the fractal etch was not going to cause her harm, it wasn't anything that could be cured. It was just sort of now a part of her that she was living with. They stayed for a little bit, but eventually moved on. And it was around that time that she sort of became of age. Yep. So they probably would have only left in like the last couple of years.
Okay. So, your aunt, why did your aunt stick around then?
She was tired from the road, and Allure has never known the road. She's grown up in Torch, so Torch is all she's ever known. She didn't want to leave, and so she decided to stay.
Okay.
So it's just the two of them.
Okay. So then so the morning comes and you're in your room. And you wake up. What is your normal morning routine is like? I'm picturing there is a like a your this is it's your aunt who owns the shop, but there's a tattoo shop that you've been working in.
Yes. Well, I don't know if it's so much as a shop, but she'd go out to the bazaar or whatever and set up sort of a booth.
There's not really, because Torch only has a community of about 4,000 people in total.
Okay.
So it's not really a trade hub.
Okay.
So there is. Let me go to the map here just to show you what I'm talking about. So there is there's a general store. There is a market square, which is right here. So actually, that would be large enough, certainly, to set up stalls. So that's fine. I think it's more of a there's always a stall sort of sitting there. You just bring your wares and whatnot, and then set up for the day.
Yeah.
In there, and then and then it's I should have set the time of year. I'm thinking that it is probably like early summer. Why do I always set it? No, let's say it's late summer. So it's been a hot time of year. So it's this is the best time of year to be sort of in the markets, because late summer you've got the Kellid tribesmen who are making their way in. You've got some people coming from the southern, sailing up from Hydrothecados, from further away on the Selene River to trade their goods that come from farther around. And that's often when not only do you get to hear about some exciting exploits from elsewhere. There's also people who are probably going to be interested in local wares too. So you and your aunt, what's your aunt's name?
Didn't come up with one.
Didn't come up with one. Okay. So let's give your aunt a. Let's see. Where did I put it? I put it over here. Go. Come up with a good Varisian name for your aunt. Her name.
Mary.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, that's okay. Then that's the purpose of these initial sessions, right? Is to sort of flesh out some of this stuff. So let's go with Gianna. And I think you call her Auntie Gia.
How do you spell it?
Gianya. So it's Auntie Gia.
So,
I'm just gonna give me 2 seconds. I'm just gonna close my blinds. It's dark here now. Okay, sorry about that.
no problem.
So I love living in a college area because there's a bunch of students who are out there finishing up a game of Quidditch right now. There's a park across from my place.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay, so
I totally forgot upstairs.
What's that?
My Harrow deck.
Well, we're not going to make use of that tonight anyway.
No, but what I was going to say is every morning she does one for herself.
Oh, very cool.
To get her prepared to not to figure out sort of what to expect throughout the day, and also keeps her mind and eye trained for looking for it to see if her reading was correct for the day, kind of thing.
Sure, yeah. So what James is talking about is we each have a copy of the Harrow deck published by Paizo, which is a pretty cool little supplement that gives it's the Pathfinder Worlds version of Tarot. And the deck itself actually gives you some optional ways to use it to add storytelling elements to the game and stuff like that. So it is a pretty cool little feature, particularly for a character that's a Parisian like Allura. So you get up and you lay the Harrow deck out. Now I haven't read the rules, and I'm not going to bother doing them right now. But in future I will make sure we've got them available, and I've read those rules so that we can actually make use of those things. I think
I spent some time trying to read through it and figure out actually how to do a Harrow reading, but then kids got in the way and haven't had a chance to really get into it.
I totally understand. Okay, so you wake up and Auntie, do you think you're up first, or is Auntie Gia up first?
She would be up first. She's an early riser.
So after you get up and you do your reading, and by the time you come out, you find that she's made your breakfast for you. There's the first meal of the day. She says, "Good morning, dear. Would you once you finish eating, would you kind of check the inks to be sure that we're all filled and ready for the market?"
Okay, Auntie.
Thank you. Oh, and remember that Connor wants to meet with you this morning too. I think he's been having trouble with Crowfeather Palace.
Okay.
One of the things that you've been doing, knowing that your character has an interest in the technology of Numeria, you're sort of pitching in with Connor to sort of learn what you can, where you can. I imagine that a lot of you have a natural inclination towards it because of your unusual nanotech infection or gifts, depending on how you look at it. But
now, does she know that it's actually nanites, or?
I don't know if I think that I think we can come up with a cool kind of like science fantasy name for it rather than nanites.
I kind of like the nanites.
Oh, do you like? Okay, if you like it, then that's fine, and that's what we'll call them.
But I just wasn't too certain if they if Connor and Allura understand what it is, or it's just something they've determined that it's not life-threatening for her, and they haven't identified it, or
yours. So your manifestation of the nanites is what they know is that there is sometimes this thing called the Iron Wind, and what the Iron Wind can be is basically this. It's some kind of Numerian tech that will just like incredibly rework the terrain and any living thing that passes through it. Sometimes sometimes those changes can be beneficial. Sometimes they can be horrifically horrible. Like if they're transmuting your muscles and organs and bones and whatnot into a liquid form, that's not going to be super helpful, right? No. Whereas, so your manifestation of it is something that they're not sure. They probably understand that fractal etch is a technological thing, and they would understand that it's a nanotech infection in the sense that it is something. It is some kind of non-visible technology that does not respond to arcane or divine magics. It has to be addressed through either a specific technological kind of approach or through a specific melding of technology and magic that seemingly only the Technic League and other sort of rogue scholars like Connor can have developed.
Okay. And
it was Connor's expertise there. Like that's where Joram was kind of hitting his head against the wall, because he just could not, even with Bry's blessings and her interventions, they just could not help you with your infection. Mm-hmm. So getting back to whether they know it, I think that they understand that your abilities are from some kind of Numerian, unseen technology, which they call nanites, but they don't know what that means. Like they couldn't replicate it. They couldn't explain why it's interface with your magic. It's kind of a mystery. I mean, they know that it's not unsafe. At least it doesn't seem to be. There was. Oh, hey, how about this? Okay, so because you gave up the nanotech poison ability to get the tattooed sorcerer ability, right?
Correct.
So what if about this? What if you did manifest that like once or twice as a kid, and that's why they gave you the tattoos?
Well, and that's what I was thinking. Like that was sort of in some of the background email I sent is um, kids don't usually get tattoos until they're older, or sorry, when they're entering of age. But
Yeah,
because she was exhibiting the tech skin stuff,
yeah.
they decided to tattoo her really young to cover it up. And so she got tattoos when you're young. Her mother was a sorcerer, kept her asleep magically while her father could tattoo her and
Oh,
not.
so you want to know something really? Here's the thing: because your character doesn't have any, um, you don't have any training in knowledge arcana, which means that you like when you do knowledge skills are such that like if you don't have the training, you don't get to make those rolls.
Mhm.
Because you've got no training in knowledge arcana, you're not going to pick up on this. But I think what someone else may have, maybe even like Brent's character pointed out to you, because your tattoo is focused on transmutation, right?
Correct.
Transmutation is the magic of change. So
Mhm.
if they place these magical tattoos on you that are linked to the magic of change, it's their way of controlling that ability. So you thought that, oh, it was them, marking me when I was young because of, they wanted to protect me and blah, blah, blah. But what it was basically, it was magically like putting a magical band-aid on the violent and dangerous transmutations that you could cause. That's why your character lost the ability to do that nanite poison thing.
Okay.
Is because they physically magically changed you. It's like magical surgery almost.
Hmm.
But with the advanced Varisian tattoo magic.
Okay.
Yeah, love that. So, but anyway, but your training, the other things like all you've learned about Numerian technology and working with engineering stuff, because engineering covers both like advanced tech, but also like the sort of like early Renaissance level of technology that is present in the Pathfinder world. So this is kind of a treat for you because when you do get to have days when you're not just working at the market and you're able to go and work with Connor, those are probably good days for you.
Hmm.
Right? So you the morning progresses that you sort of help out your auntie, and I think maybe you guys live. Let's see here, maybe like around here ish. I mean, it's little.
Yep.
I
It's
think
in
like
between market and in between the
yeah,
facility.
yeah. So it's a place I'm thinking that's not like super convenient super convenient access to anything necessarily important, but you would have this lovely orchard right across the right across either your back door or front, I guess back door. So that's kind of nice. And then there's the Crowfeather Lake is right near you as well. So oh no, sorry, I put you were down here, right?
He stuck us here. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, then that's you're actually that fits because I mean if you're struggling and it's a you guys didn't grow up here, then maybe it was just you took whatever was available. And in the winter months, you probably operate from within your, within the building.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, sorry, you were saying that Connor had been purifying the water, so is Crowfeather Lake safe to drink? And it's
Crowfeather
just
Lake is safe to
the
drink. It's still not nice. Like it still smells funny, and it has it can give you a weird tingling kind of sensation if you like. No one swims in it. You generally don't want to eat anything that comes out of it. But it does provide, and thanks to the Crowfeather Palace, it does make it safe at least to drink. So the dangers that come with Numerian fluids aren't present any
okay,
longer.
so it's sort of like nasty well water.
Yeah, totally. So the you go and help Auntie, set up, and then you kind of have to scamper all the way back, past your place, around, over the small little bridge there, and then up and around. Connor, his place. Let's double check. I think I know where it is, but I want to Double check I've got the right address. And I had the wrong address, so I'm glad I looked it up. Oh, I didn't. I was only one building over. So right over here is a place called the Foundry Tavern.
Okay.
And right next to there is a workshop. That's where Connor's place is. So he runs a tavern as sort of a side thing. He and Val and one or two of his employees. And then he has a workspace as well, too. And so there's the Foundry Tavern is a good place for sort of like local Numerian scholars or people who are interested in Numerian ruins to sort of meet and have a drink. It's also a little bit more of a intellectual-minded and less debauching alternative to Silver Disc Hall, which is located. Where is Silver Disc Hall? Right up here. Silver Disc Hall is the local sort of gambling manor that is run by a guy named Garmin Ulreth. Garmin is said to have connections with the underworld, with the local thugs. No one's able to prove anything, but it's sort of like an open secret that Garmin is associated with this rope fist gang that seems to lurk, around the back streets of Torch. And in fact, that it's rumored that the rope fist thugs, under Ulreth's instructions, murdered Ian's father. At least that's what Ian believes. And Garmin, I want to see what Garmin Ulreth looks like and what a rope fist thug looks like. The rope fists are named because they wrap their hands in rope and they use that to sort of, pummel their opponents. Garmin is the guy on the left there. Right at the top.
Oh, there we go. And sorry, he runs what tavern?
Silver Disc Hall. It's this large gambling hall and tavern. So it's kind of like a casino. Okay. Silver Disc are the local currency in Numeria. They're basically like these little discs with this kind of like circuitry etching on it. And what you actually know, give me an engineering check. Let's get some dice rolling here.
Okay, where's my character sheet?
Maybe click on the white button that has all skills. Yeah, perfect.
And sorry, what was I rolling?
Knowledge engineering, please.
Engineering. Nice.
23, yeah. So what you know is that the silver discs, everyone just treats them like, coinage in these regions. But what you know is they are spent batteries. They're batteries that can be used to power Numerian technology. And these are ones that happen to either be spent or just damaged. And they're so common and ubiquitous in Numeria that they just became the trade, the sort of the currency of the realm. You can actually see in Samble Tret's hand there, he's got some silver discs tumbling out of him.
Cool. Now, is that common knowledge or is that?
Which, that they're batteries?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think if you've got any training in with Numerian technology, you recognize that, but it's, for most people, they don't think of it that way. It's kind of like how, like I'm trying to think of an example of it, but like I'm sure like in your everyday life, you've had things that you've called a certain thing for years and years and years, and then you really think about what it actually means. You're like, holy fuck, that's where that came from. Like the first time, like growing up in Winnipeg, referring to Notre Dame, and it never dawned on me that it's named after the fucking church in Paris, right?
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where you had that realization, like, oh, of course, that's why it's, yeah, that makes sense now. And yeah, and that's what the same with silver discs. Like, people just call them silver discs. They probably don't necessarily spare a lot of thought into what they actually are. They just, for most people, they're just trade goods. Numerian tech is pretty rare and pretty expensive as well. It's not like people are running, robots around all over the place, or using ray guns to fight all the time. It's only really the brave adventurers who want to run the risk of being hunted by the Technic League if they're able to successfully recover these things from the ruins. Or people like, enterprising rogue scholars like Connor, who try and learn, what they can and share their information, with what they can. So, getting back to the map. So you're scampering around. It's a lovely summer morning. You can tell it's going to be a really good day. Let me just check something quickly here. I want to see if my map is effed up. Okay, I just need to do one quick change here. But I can show you what the Foundry Tavern is like, just to get you familiar with some of the maps you can see. So you head to the Foundry Tavern. Boom. And this is the Foundry Tavern. Now, I can't remember. Can you see everything on that map right now? Or can you see nothing?
I see black.
Okay. Let's do this. Boom. Give you a character here. I'm going to give her sight. Okay. There we go. Okay, so can you see your token on there right now?
Negative.
How about now?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, let me just make one quick adjustment here. I'm just going to set your bars up here. So we'll make red your hit points. Oops, where's it? Okay, and let's see if that populates properly. Yes, it does. Nice. Okay, and I don't think there's any other resources we need to track for her. She doesn't have like sorceress points or any shit like that, right?
No.
Okay.
Straight up sorcerer, just slots.
Okay, so is that bar number 1? Yeah. Right. So we'll
and I think we actually are just going to sort of, as a nickname, just call her Allura versus Allura Valera, like the whole.
Yeah.
Just
people would not say her full name every time.
No, only shorten it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the Foundry Tavern. Can you see everything there now? You can't see inside, I guess, right?
No, I can see, and I got line of sight to certain spots, but most of it's dark.
Oh yeah, right. I can see. I just took a look and see what you can see. So this is what the inside of the Foundry Tavern looks like.
Nope. Okay.
So you look around. This is a place you probably spent many an evening talking to Connor and your other friends, and this is what the workplace is like. Again, you've spent a lot of time in there as well, and you spent time in Connor's home because you're friends with Val. Oops, you know what? I can't. That's why. That's very interesting. So when I do the Control L and I look from your perspective, I also can't move the token. Like I'm restricted by line of sight, just like you are.
That's a small little room there.
That's because it's hold up. Let me move you. There you go. That's one of the rooms. Another and another.
There we go.
And another. There you go. So you heading into the workspace, because that's sort of where you're most likely to find Connor and maybe Val as well too. And you walk in, and that's where you see Connor is at work at one of the desks here. And again, he's played by Liam Neeson in our campaign. So he walks in and he's saying something to Val at this point, and Val, he's giving instructions in relation to what she needs to do during the day. And remember, you need to replace the the kegs. Make sure that Gregor doesn't drink too much throughout the day. We, you know how things can get when it's this hot. If he's drinking ale, make sure to water it down so that he's not too drunk to work by the evening. She says, I know, Dad, I know. And then he sees you walk in, and he says, Allura, I see that the message got to your mother. And he's sort of packing up this wooden like tools kit full of some of his tools, his engineering tools. Did you bring your own?
Shh.
Do you have engineering tools?
She doesn't have engineering tools. She just has the thievery tools.
Okay. So he looks and says, all right, so you've heard that compressor we've been talking about. I'm pretty sure it's the problem. Yeah, your aunt can spare you for the day to help with the repairs then?
I think so.
Great.
She runs over, she gives him like a hug and greeting, and then kind of like peers over his shoulder or his arm kind of thing, looking at the tools that he's collected.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. And it's a really interesting mix of he's got a real knack for finding things that the phrase he uses for them is time worn. And what it means, just like the way he's explained it to you, is that sometimes some of the technology that's found, it has just been so it's so old and gone through so many hands that it is just a hair's breadth away from never working again. But he has a real knack for keeping these time-worn objects working. And a lot of the different you've learned what most of the tools do that he has in his thing there. But even those things, they're a bizarre mix of like advanced technology looking objects that also have like tribal markings that have been etched into the side by some long dead Kellid tribesman who found them. Like there's an odd, almost supernatural reverence or fear of Numerian technology amongst the Kellid tribes. So the collection of stuff he's got is not like something you would have bought in a set. It's what represents the lifetime of accumulation of these very hard to find and special tools. One of a kind kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you look over and you're you're excited because you'll be working with some of these today. So what he says then is, once he finishes giving his instructions to Val, he grabs his the big thing and says, "All right, are we ready to go?"
Yep.
Then you can see that around his belt, like he's kind of a man of many talents, and around his belt as well, you see that there are quite a few alchemical contraptions, and I think probably know, not because of your training, because again, like you don't really have training in craft alchemy, training in knowledge arcana, but you've maybe seen him before use these. He has this ability to make these really interesting and powerful volatile alchemical explosives. And that's what he keeps with him. And part of it is because like there's just torch. Sometimes dangerous shit just happens, right? Like so that's his way of kind of keeping things safe. You maybe seen him use it on an overly drunk, murderously aggressive Kellid tribesman at one point, and it left horrible fucking injuries on that tribesman. But anyway, he hikes up the things and he starts, making his way with you through the early morning town. There's a lot of folks who are making their way to. You can see people are making their way to the market square. There are a bunch of the laborers and apprentices and sky metal workers, the blacksmiths. They're all making their way up to the Black Hill and talking. And there's a lot of like, "Oh, good morning," as you guys are passing by. And he says, so the has your aunt mentioned the plan that we have concocted for you and some of your friends?
She cocks her head to the side. No, she did not mention anything like that.
Well, then why don't we stop? We've got one detour. Let me show you something as we go. So as you're going along, there's sort of like you're just chatting idly, about just friends you have in town, and I guess like some of the things that you and Ian and Oland had gotten involved with. I think that Error, from the way that Jeff's saying he's going to play his character, Error, it sounds like Error is going to be kind of a watchdog for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making your way through town. You make your way across the river, and rather than heading up towards Crowfeather Palace, he actually leads you down over to this direction. And along here is most of the homes that are owned by agricultural workers. The folks who work some of the orchards or the farmlands that are either inside the sort of the border of Torch itself or nearby. And he brings you to right here where there's an open lot. And he gestures to it. And says, there. What do you see there?
Vacant lot. Ready. Yep. I don't know.
And he sort of shakes his head with a playful kind of scowl on his face. He says, I'm disappointed in you, Allura. A builder like you? That there is opportunity. You see, your aunt, myself, sorry, what is Brent's character's last name? Ian
Grenard.
What is it? Oh, Grenard, right.
Yeah.
Ms. Grenard, or Councilwoman Grenard, Miss Otterby, all contributed to purchase this land for you, Oland, Error, and Ian. You will build your home here.
Really?
We see as we've mentioned before, we see the future of Torch in you children. Children, you're adults now. It's hard not to think of you still as the way you were, but we see you as the future of this town, and this is our way of ensuring that you have a foundation on which to build your future here.
I'm speechless. I don't know what to say.
You say thank you.
Thank you very much. And she gives him a great big hug.
She Patsy says, "Oh, that's of course. It's well, so let's see if we can get you to earn some of that gift today, shall we?"
Let's.
So you head up. Just as for mechanics wise, James, this is the town, like the downtime actions that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This is the patch of land that you guys are going to be building on. So we talked before in the email about the what capital and whatever that you need to make in order to build your stuff there. And then I'll leave it to you and Brent and Steve and Jeff to decide what other kind of specialties and whatnot. Ultimate Campaign has all the rules on that. And we won't get into it tonight, but maybe I'll flip you an email again between sessions to fill in sort of what, remind you guys of what's going on there. Because you're gonna have at least a month's worth of time to do some of that work. As you're walking away too, you see in this building here,
the one next to it?
Yeah, small one next to the really big one.
Yep.
There is actually, give me a perception check. Let's see if you notice anything. That's pretty good. So you do look out and you sort of spare a look back because, geez, this is so exciting. You guys have a whole, place you can build. And as you look back, you can see oh shit, there's someone who in that other house, she's got the curtain pulled back, and she's glaring at the back of Connor's head and at you as you guys are walking away. And let's see if she spots you looking at her. Yeah, she sees you and kind of, and then closes the curtains. But at the very least, it looks like you've got some nosy neighbors. So, however, once you go back down that way, and we can maybe name some of the streets in Torch as well too, so it's got some actual character to it. You head back to that sort of big intersection.
Hold on. Yep. What lane are we currently on?
You were walking down, like it was when you were walking away from the site.
But the site is on a street, so what is the street?
That street, so like rules that are as written, it doesn't have a name. I'm going to give it Orchard Lane.
Okay.
Okay. Your home will be on Orchard Lane.
Our future home.
Future home. Well, you guys are, I mean, they're not kicking you out right now, but it is summertime. So if you were so inclined just to set up tents or something like that, you guys really could be on your own. You head back to this intersection here and then start making your way back up the Black Hill towards Crowfeather Palace. And as you can see, all the foliage along the path of the river that goes down from the Weeping Pond down into Crowfeather Palace, it's all this brown and discolored stuff. It's not dead per se, it's just weirdly distorted and looks unhealthy. It's got a sickly, kind of almost oily quality to it. So it's not the most sightly of things. And as you're making your way up, you can hear kind of this wheezing shook, 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 that is the ever-present sound of Crowfeather Palace. But you're so familiar with that sound that just like when you're, driving a car that you're familiar with and it makes a noise that you're like, oh, that sounds off. The rhythm of this seems a bit off.
Okay.
So you head in, and the this whole thing is like there is an actual building there that protects some of the mechanical innards, but there's big pipes that run down into the Crowfeather Lake and kind of like treat some of this water and pump out some other kind of thing. And it's inside the area, or inside the actual structure itself, is where Connor needs to do the work. There's a big wooden ladder that's stored in there that's used to access some of the higher bits. So you get in there with him, and after about an hour, or maybe like an hour or half an hour of work, you guys get up onto the, he's up above and you're handing him tools and stuff like that. And he's been pulling apart this one component. And then he pulls, finally, this, gets in, and as you're in there, like, again, you're probably incredibly familiar with the sounds of all the machinery operating in here. If you picture like a generator room, I don't know if you remember ever doing, like, as kids, doing tours of any kind of like the Manitoba hydro plants, which is big hydroelectric things with these giant engines that sort of make these large mechanical rhythmic sounds to them. But that's what's going on in here. And part of it, though, sounds off to you. That's where he's working. And he pulls out this component, and everything in here, like, nothing is really like freshly fabricated. There's all sorts of shit that's cobbled together to do different things, and different colored pipes that are made of slightly different metals and shit like that. Like, this is really like a massive kludging project. And as he sort of pulls something out, this component, he hands it down to you. He wraps it up in this sort of like winch thing and lowers it down. This thing probably weighs about 40 pounds. And he says, Allura, can you take a look at that? Tell me what you think.
Okay.
You grab it and give me, now this is Numerian technology, so if you didn't have the technologist feat, you would suffer a penalty for the roll. But thankfully, you took the technologist feat, so there's no penalty. Let's see what you think of this.
Doing engineering?
Yeah, knowledge engineering, please. So you're looking at this thing, and oh man, it's on the tip of your brain, and like you're looking at this, and you grab one of the devices out of the box that you know he's used. You make sure that the silver disc that's in the battery is charged, and you sort of whoop, 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 and you get readings on it. And you look at the readout on the screen. Oh man, like you adjust it to get a different reading, but you can't figure out what you should know the answer to this, but it's just you can't figure it out. What do you say?
I feel like I should know this, but for some reason, it's just escaping me this morning.
Take a look at the feedback compensator near the back.
Okay.
You look back and you see where he's talking about what he's doing is he's aiding another. So he's giving you +2 to your roll. Why don't you try again? You'll get +2 to the result. Oh yeah. Oh, you see it and you're like, how did I miss that? Yeah, of course, it's completely fused. Something happened there. It looks like there's some kind of something maybe have leaked in there or something, or a wire casing sort of went through. But for whatever reason, this is useless. You're going to need to get something else to replace it. And as with most of the things in Crowfeather Palace, it's not a matter of going to find a new component. It's it's a matter of finding something that will do the job kind of whatever that component was. But with a roll that well, like precisely what you need to find.
Okay.
So he says, have you found it now? He's looking down at you, and he's got that same kind of like, knowing smile. He's like, have you
I see it now. I see it now. I know what we need to fix.
Okay. I thought that I saw Tret in town. Would you bring the damaged unit to him and see if he's got something to replace it? Something that will do. Tret is someone that we'll talk about Tret in just a moment.
Okay. Trent or Trek?
Tret. T-R-E-T-T. I'll give you the spell. Actually, I'll show you. So there's Sandville Tret.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And in the movie version of our Iron Gods campaign, Sandville Tret is played by Paul Rudd.
Okay.
But like the way I'm picturing is, if you, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's a Netflix film called Mute. Came out, and it's got Paul Rudd in it with like long hair and this mustache and stuff. That's the Paul Rudd I'm picturing. The scruffier, still sarcastic, but that's the Paul Rudd who plays Sandville Tret. Not like Ant-Man, Paul Rudd. So
cleaned up.
Yeah, I don't know. Sandville, he's clean cut, and he's charming, but his hair's a little wild. Sandville is a traveling merchant who seems to specialize in these kind of Numerian technology. Sometimes he'll sell you cool stuff. Sometimes he will want to buy cool stuff from you. But he's a handy source of just like new Numerian tech. If he's not, and then as you're sort of scrambling up, Connor is still working on something in the palace. Then he says, "Oh, Allura, if Sandville has nothing, go see Technic and see if you can find something in the scrapyard." And Technic is at the top of that page. He's one of the rat folk who lives in town.
Oh, you would have to have ratlings.
I love rat folk. I love them. So they're actually canon part of the Numerian setting. So it's another reason I love this adventure path so much.
Hate rat folks.
I fucking love
and
them.
I think he creeps her out.
Oh, no doubt, because they're only about 3 feet tall, right? And they're hunched over like that too, and they do have kind of a twitchy kind of furtive nature to them. And they're very clannish as well too. Like, they're not most other species that are in Torch. They sort of all work amongst each other, but Technic's almost entire group or clan or tribe or whatever you want to call it, his family, it all lives off in this sort of like trash heap kind of thing. So,
and sorry, he operates a scrapyard.
yeah, scrapyard, and the scrapyard is located, I believe. Let me bring you back to the map. So Sanville Tret will be found in the market square. You know him from there.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a remorseless flirt. He is definitely older than you, so he's not age appropriate, but that does not stop him in the least. Yeah, the junkyard's right at the north tip of town, right up around here.
And the dirty section.
Yeah, but the thing is that there also can kind of be like, if you need a random part, it's kind of like an auto scrapyard, right? Where if there's a useful bit that maybe could be salvaged, that might be a place you could find it. So, yeah, so you leave Crowfeather Palace, and then you make your way down to I guess the market square, and it's getting a little later in the day, a little closer to noon, so it's getting a little bit busier. And as you make your way in, you're sort of making your way through the crowd of traders who have come from elsewhere in the River Kingdoms. You maybe see one or two Yomidian paladins who are making their way along. They have the big white tabard of the Yomidian Crusade. Because to the northwest of Numeria is the giant world wound, from which it's said demons just pour. And it's the Yomidian Crusade that sort of keeps the rest of the world safe from those demonic threats. There is a keep near here called Castle Uzeron, or Urizon, I think it's called. Let me see here. I can show you on the map here. It's to the west of Yedenve. Yeah, Urion. Castle Urion right over here. And the reason that I think that you may have made note of the note, I think it's time to hit refresh. We'll do. I know it's midnight when they were, and then no.
What?
Oh, am I breaking up?
Yeah, you broke up for a second. You said, I know it's midnight.
Oh, I said, yeah, I know it's midnight. So do you want to go for maybe like 20 minutes more and then call it a night?
Yep, I'm good with that.
Okay, cool. I'm just trying to reload my roll 20. It's completely frozen up right now. Run. Anyway, the reason if you can hear me still, then I'll keep talking. The reason that Council gives to you is, or it may have stood out, is because one of the things that is particularly cool, an event that is really, really neat to see when you're...
Oh, you totally broke up. I'm not getting any of that.
Did any of that get through, or did you...
Nope, all I heard was, it's very neat to see, and then it was just dead air.
Okay, give me a
so
second.
whatever cool description you had, wasted.
Yeah, it's hold on. It looks like that's back now. That's back now. Let me hit refresh on roll 20. Reload it. That's too funny. All right. Yeah, I would not. Can you hear me now, James?
I can hear you, but your face is frozen again.
Yeah. I'm just reloading the thing. So what I'll do is
I'm gonna reload mine as well.
Okay, I'll tell you again. So what I said is that from one of the cool things that you would have remembered from growing up in Torcha, a cool event, is that maybe one or two times you've seen the Griffin Cavalry from Castle Urion flying overhead with these, paladins and cavaliers who are part of the Crusade, dressed in their shiny metal armor and white tabards, astride these giant flying creatures. So you seeing the Yomadine Crusaders in town, there's a split second where you're like, oh man, there's a chance that there may be griffins near here, but work calls them. All right, come on, roll 20. Find you, little horse. I wonder if it's because so many people are playing roll 20 on Friday nights, or using roll 20 on Friday nights.
That'd be a shocker.
Because it seems to freeze up on me every frickin' Friday. I don't have this problem on Wednesdays.
Oh, no?
No. Okay. So anyway, that's what I was telling you about the Crusaders. So the Yomadine, pass up maybe one or two of those in town. I'll move you back over to Torch here. And you make your way over to Tret. And Tret seems to be talking to some Kelid over some kind of thing that was found. Now, it's weird. The Kelids normally have a cultural taboo against Numerian tech. This guy, though, seems like he's, maybe a bit of a junk trader kind of thing. He's maybe like a Kelid traveler in his 50s. We're sort of like, are arguing with him in Kelid. Do you speak Kelid or not?
I think I do.
I can take a look on here. Lab, let's see here. Your languages are. Oh yeah. What's your background?
Common, Halti, Orc, and Viserion.
Halit. Halit, I believe, is the Kelid tongue.
Okay, good, because I'd switch out Orc for that then.
Orc is fairly common here. There's a lot of orcs particularly in Scrapwall, and to the south, oh gosh, what is it? Southwest is a region called Belkson, which is just fucking like rife with orcs. It's extremely, extremely dangerous.
Now, orcs in this world, are they a little more civilized where they're allowed in towns? Not where
they're known for basically like three things: incredible amount of violence, of both the physical and sexual nature. Like, there's a reason there's so many half orcs, and then there's a half orc as a viable player characters, because that is one of the things orcs do. Mm-hmm. They're extremely fecund. They reproduce very easily, and they will try and inflict that on anyone.
Okay, so then how would she have learned orc?
Because there are orcs that live in Scrapwall as well that are a little more civilized, and there's also a shit ton of half orcs. Like, being near Belksen means that the people who are unfortunate enough to live near the border, there are sometimes, the half orcs are the byproducts of the threat that you have there, and generally because of that being the sort of backstory for the half orcs, it's rare that they're welcome to stay in their communities. Usually it's better for them to get the fuck out, and those who don't try and put up with the abuse that they get in living with their orc parents will happily, leave and try and make a life elsewhere. But those types of children do not have very good childhoods, which makes for very violent and often, psychologically damaged people. Plus, there's also the predisposition towards orc ferocity as well. Like, there's just a physiological response that some orcs have. And like mechanically, what it means is that, like, when a half orc hits 0 hit points, they can still act. Like, they're that fucking tough. And with actual orcs, like, when you reduce an orc to a 0, I think they can keep on going for one more round. So, like, you have to knock knock a orc down to its 0, to its negative constitution score to put the fucking thing down, or you got to put up with it counterattacking for at least one more round. They're brutal. But again, like, there's like I mentioned as well too, there's that one merchant who travels with the guy with the robot arm or cyber arm.
Yep.
He's a half orc. So,
But no one's seen him. No one's seen him since the Tech League experimented on him.
You actually never heard him or met him. You've heard of this guy.
Yeah, Error had told the story, but he didn't say whether or not anyone saw him since. So they just know they took him away and experimented on him.
Oh yeah,
That was it.
What he said is that the rumors are is that this guy who is a trader, like who he plies, he runs a ship that plies the Selene rivers. So he travels from Hadro Takados down to some of the up to Scrapwall, up to Chesed, and then deeper into the river kingdoms themselves. To give you an idea, let me just quickly show you here in. These are the river kingdoms here. This is a shitty thing, but like, okay, so of this map, I'll hold, once we switch to the main camera, I'll hold it up so it's better. But so this massive region here, this is the river kingdoms. Numeria only makes up this, oops, wrong way. This little map bit here.
Yep.
That's Numeria. This is the whole river kingdom. So there are traders that make their way all over the fucking place in here to to trade with the different, small kingdoms and city states and whatnot that make up what are called the river kingdoms. It just so happens that this guy probably had it said that arm came from experiments with done on him by the Technic League. And that's not the only one. Like, there's probably other people who are, like, mutants are a thing in Numeria as well too. There are people who have been exposed to either the Iron Wind or to Numerian fluids who are, blind, or they've got one giant limb and one giant arm and one small withered arm, or any other sorts of really horrible mutations. Those aren't necessarily caused by the Technic League, but from the rumors you've heard, you certainly wouldn't put it beyond them. So you make your way in town and you see Sandville arguing with this older guy, and it's in again, I think Halit is. I'll look it up afterwards because it's really not important right now. I just love tracking down trivia. So you see that finally that he says, look, no, this is fine. Look, I'll give you 100 gold, says Sandal. That's it. This is not worth more than that. If you don't like the 100 gold, then by all means go and try and sell it to someone else, or go and bring it to your tribesmen. I'm sure they'd love to smash that for you and do that free of service. The Kelid tribesman is kind of like, you can see that this is the end of a long negotiation, and Sandal sort of sees out of the corner of his eye. He sees you, and he's like, smiles, and then goes back to his serious face with this old guy. He's, look, I've got a friend I need to speak to. I don't have time. You know what? In fact, I don't want it. I don't want it. And finally, the guy's like, oh, no, all right, fine, 100. He's like, you know what? No, you pissed me off. 90. I'm giving you 90. Take it or leave it. And he says, no, but 90, 80. And he's fine, 90. And he bundles out, a small little stack of gold coins, takes this thing, stuffs it behind the thing. So now get out of here. Go on. But when you find something else, bring it back to me. I'll be happy to see it then. Goodbye. Good luck. Don't get blown up. Ahura! What can I do for you, my lovely? Have you finally come to join me for a drink at the Foundry Tavern? Is your aunt around?
My aunt is not around. And it is a pleasure to see you. I knew
today was going to be a good day, and today's proven to be a good day.
So I see you're depriving scavengers of their hard-earned gold.
No, not at all. I'm ensuring that he can maintain his livelihood. He's lucky to have got that much money for this. This thing, certainly. I mean, I can barely sell that for, I don't know. I'm not even sure I would sell that. They may be a good keepsake. I don't know. Anyway, what do I need to close my stall? I'll happily do it for you, my love.
I know. Connor, however, has sent me here to inquires as if you have a part that he needs.
Part. All right. Well, you brought it. I'm assuming you brought it with you.
Yeah.
You kind of put it down. Oh, okay. Let me make a roll for him. And let me check his stats. Now, for those listening at home, just so you know, we normally, when we run things, I tend to like do a lot of DM hand wavery when it comes to NPCs. But because we're playing Pathfinder and we're really trying to play it rules as written, I am keeping honest with all of my dice rolls. So I'm making dice rolls for the NPCs to see whether they, whether they succeed or whatnot, so that they're not, so that everyone is sort of operating by the same rules. I think that'll give it more of a verisimilitude. But he did roll pretty well, but he didn't roll as well as you. He's looking at it and he's, my dear, I'm going to pretend that I know what I'm looking at, but why don't you tell me what I'm looking at?
Well, while he's looking, she's like looking at all of his stuff too, and peering and looking at what he has. And
there's a lot of cool shit, like stuff that you really would love to spend some time with.
So she puts up with his flirting, finds it mildly amusing, but she likes coming to him so that she can see all sorts of new stuff that he comes in and see sort of see what kind of things catches her eye.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff here. Now, there's some of them are relatively minor, like you would probably guess that the prices are like in the hundreds of GP, but there are some that are there that are just phenomenally advanced things that you would need to spend some time with to figure out what they can do. That would likely be in the thousands, if not tens of thousands of GP, of costs. He sees you eyeing one particular thing. Would you make a engineering check for me, please?
Okay. I didn't know if I need to do perception or engineering, but
yeah, it's an engineering check. It's not perception is is your senses picking up something. The knowledge rolls are what's used to sort of understand what you're seeing. Okay. So you're looking at this. There's this object that's it's about like this big, and it's a disc with a it's got a metal kind of edging to it, and there's a flat metal sort of backing, or at least you think it's some kind of sky metal. And then on the front, though, there's this unusual like like the sheen you get off of like a CD.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom side of the CD, it's like that, but a little darker in a more of a violet color. And you're looking at this, and you think this probably attaches to something, but you're not quite sure what. You know what? You think this might attach to a weapon of some kind. And he sort of, as he's looking at it, he looks up and he sees you, and then he says that, let's pretend so that I know what I'm looking at. Then why don't you tell me what I'm looking at? And but what are you looking at?
Well, it seems kind of neat, but it might be related to weaponry.
A keen eye. What the scholars call that, or the ancients called that, is and he says it in Androphan, which you, I think, understand.
I do not.
Do not? Oh, interesting. Right, Brent's the only one who knows Androphan. That's cool. So he says something in Androphan, but it's more commonly known as a gravity clip. Do you strap that to the Kellids? I'm waiting for some tribesmen with deep pockets who will want to strap that to one of his battle axes, because what it does is, as long as it's got power, it will pull the weapon down even harder, increasing the effect of each blow. And you can look at this. So basically, like mechanically, what it does is for each charge that it uses, it causes the damage from the hit to resolve as if the weapon were one size category larger than the actual effect.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty too, isn't it? And deadly.
It does seem very interesting. However, not quite what we were looking for.
No, I suppose you can't just hit the water into being drinkable.
Nope.
So again, explain it to me as if you were explaining it to an ignorant Kelid, a tribesman. I love hearing you explain things, my dear. What, my beauty, am I looking at?
I'm not 100% certain what we're looking at.
You are now. You rolled really well. You rolled 21 before, so...
Okay, so she'll explain it like she would try to explain to a child.
Yeah, okay. So you explain it, and he says, I heard. Uh-huh. Yes. And... Right. He's still looking at you completely blank. I just rolled for him again. And even with the 8 another, he's like... So, let me show you what I have. And he sort of brings back you're trying to explain it to him because there is a little bit of nuance to this of what this specific part does.
Mm-hmm.
And what
can I look to see if there's sort of, because this part was attached to other things.
Yeah.
So could she look to see if maybe she might see the other thing to see if maybe it's got it attached or...
The difficulty with this is that the whole thing has been kludged together. All the Crowfeather Palace has largely been kludged together.
It's all hodgepodge.
Nothing nothing has been designed to all fit together necessarily, or at least there are massive important parts that aren't. So what you'll need to do is sort of root around through his stuff and see if there's anything there. So why don't you give me a... Let's see here. I think what's more important is your engineering. I think your perception is kind of garbage, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead and give me an engineering check again. Knowledge engineering. I'll let you take... Wow. Really good. Okay, great. So it does take you a little while. And throughout the whole time, he keeps like touching your back and touching your shoulder. And, boy, the sun is so hot. We should really go for a drink. Dehydration is a serious threat in this time of year, And you're still looking through, putting up with his stuff and then looking through the components. And you do find something that seems like it would, it would probably work.
So this looks interesting.
Yes.
Pull it out and show it to him.
Okay. He looks and he says, yes, that is very interesting. Wait, was it a... And he says the same thing that you said, or I should have written it down because it was just technobabble. But he says the same technobabble thing that you said before. Was it the, recycling component or whatever that you were... That's what you were looking for.
Yes, indeed.
Of course, yes, I have that here. There.
So she tucks her hair behind her ear and gives him a smirk.
Wonderful. So that's what old Bainey wants. Right. Well, he can have it for a very modest discount as well, too. And don't you worry. I know he's good for it. What are you going to do with the old part, then?
Does it look like it can be used? Because you said it was fused, so I didn't...
Yeah,
I'm assuming there's some melting or...
The most important bit of this overall component is, or at least what you need it for the purpose so that it served, it's not working anymore. So if what that does is give him the salvage value of this, that might drive down the purchase price. So,
if you want it, I'm sure we can come to an arrangement.
Worst come to worst, I'll send it to the Ratlings. That's perfect. Great.
Just so long as you and not me.
You found your part. Why don't you drop that off, and then we'll head to the tavern. And at that point,
love to.
You hear kind of a clearing of throats, and you look over, and it's Auntie Gia.
I was just about to use her as an excuse to get out.
He's just glaring at Tret, and he says, "Ha!" And he kind of takes a conspicuous step away from you. and says, "All right, Allura, I'm glad to have been of assistance to the town." And he looks over at Gia to really emphasize that my civic spirit is really what's driving me here. But I hope that will be of assistance. And you hear Auntie Gia say, "Allura, could I see you for a moment?"
Sure. She stands up and is like, "Thank you, Trent," and she stands on her tippy toes and gives him a kiss on the cheek, and then goes off to see her aunt.
He takes a step back and then realizes he's demonstrated far too much happiness in front of Auntie Gia, and then sort of goes back to puts the component away behind him and starts like his salesmanship is suddenly regenerated. So he's talking to people in the crowd. "You come on over here, sir. Surely you need something from the Numerian waste. Hello, Auntie Gia." And as you walk over to him, she says, "What were you doing with him? I've warned you about him.
He's harmless. I needed to find a part, and I would rather see him than go see the rattlings."
I'm less concerned about what the rattlings may take in their hands than that one. How goes the work with Connor?"
It's progressing. It's interesting.
She smiles and she says, I thought you might enjoy the day. Well, my dear, when you're finished up, join me and we'll have our midday lunch. And then, unless Connor needs you for more work.
Well, we can break for lunch, but I'll have to go back to at least drop off the purchase.
Perfect. So you guys head over and you have your lunch. Do you bring up the lot, Auntie Gia?
Yes, because you said she contributed. So
You did, yeah.
Connor showed me the lot that you all acquired. It is very generous of you. I didn't realize do we have that money to spare? Like,
she smiles and says, your parents, when they left, they knew that they couldn't leave you behind to constantly live with your spinster aunt. So they left a substantial sum behind. And the land itself was not particularly expensive. And there are many. We all believe that if this is going to be your home, well, it is your home, Allura of Valera. You will, I will spend my final days here, and unless Desna takes you elsewhere, this will be your home to your old days as well. And if it is your home, you should have something that you can call your own, and friends to see you through that. One of the things that non-Varisians miss about our people, they think that we travel the roads and that we live a lonely life amongst our family. But and it's true that our families are close and of great importance, but what they fail to recognize is all the friends and all the memories that are made along the way. That's something that you have been robbed of here, is by making all those new friends. But if you are not able to travel, then I would sooner see the friendships that you have made deepen. And I think that one way to do that is and that we all agree, is for the four of you to build your first home together.
she's touched by it. She gets a little bit teary-eyed. Oh, thanks, and she gives her a hug.
My dear, so we are happy to do it for you. But please, no more water. well, we can't spare it until you get the Crowfeather Palace working again. It's not safe to drink the water. So if you finish eating what you've got there, and would you get that back to Connor and help him get it working again?
Okay.
So you finish up your meal, you scamper back, you head back to meet up with Connor. He gives the part, and he sort of looks at it. All right. Yes. Yes, this will work perfectly. Well spotted, Allura.
Thanks.
And he, goes. He help, gets you. Well, let me ask this: do you want to install it yourself? You try yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you give me a disable device check, please? Whoa! So
Nice.
That's fucking incredible. So not only did you install it precisely where you need to, you actually improved on the design. So you put it in there and you like reworked maybe one or two wires and hoses, and you kept asking for tools from him that he didn't offer you. And then you finish up, you go down and you leave it for him to inspect. And he goes up and he says, "Oh, I see what you've done here. That's quite clever. We could rework much of the west side of the piping like this as well. That's extremely clever. Well done, Allura."
It just kind of came to me. That makes sense.
And he comes down and says, "That's terrific. That should be satisfactory." And he heads over to somewhere and he pulls a lever down, and then the sound starts up again, and now it sounds like the Crowfeather Palace is chugging away the way that you have always known it to, and the way that it should be. There. He goes over to this place where there are some like gauges, and it's this weird mix of like, sort of like the pressure valve kind of things, and there's this weird like glass display. It has some lighting on the inside. It's a language you can't read, but yeah, it seems to be working again. He says that this should be processing. So wonderful. Well, that's I have to head back to that's all the work I had for the Crowfeather today. You're free to rejoin your aunt. Thank you, Allura.
My pleasure.
Well, if you want, and if you are able, please feel free to join us for dinner.
I would love to.
I'm sure Val would be happy to have someone. And please invite Gia as well. She's more than welcome to join us, as always.
Sure.
So you head away, and as you guys are trotting along, I'm not sure if you guys there's maybe a little bit of idle chat with Connor, where he's like, you rehooked, and he's describing sort of the process that you did. And we see the camera sort of pulling away so we can't really hear what you and Connor are talking about as you're describing how you hooked up that device into there. And as we're panning away, what we see is, again, the tall, winding road that winds its way up and around the Black Hill at the center of Torch. And you guys are backlit by that brilliant, vibrant violet beam that shoots skyward, giving your hometown its name of Torch. And with that, we will end our prequel session. So for those, actually, first off, James, because you played in our first prequel session, and I'm trying to use staggered advancements. One sec here. I'll give you a step towards. Now, what this means is you're not going to be gaining a new level before the other guys, because we are doing the staged, or rather the the set advancement, milestone advancement. But in the interim, I got the wrong book. I'm going to let you go. So you get something from each session.
Mm-hmm.
It's Pathfinder and Cheat. All right. So because we're using the stage advancements in Unchained, you get, let's see here, staggered advancements. Here we go, 42. So you have your option of okay, you can take you can get a bonus to your base attack bonus. So it's basically you're taking a step towards level 2. Let me see. I don't know if you get a bonus at level 2.
I don't think I do.
It's every 3 for a sorcerer.
Oh, I do. Second level, I get +1 base attack.
Nice. Okay, so you could get the +1 to your base attack. You could get 50% of your hit points that you get at your next level, or you could get the save bonus you get at the next level, which is +1 to your will save. So it's the base attack bonus, half of whatever your hit points are for the next level, or your save bonus. And each time you take, you'll be taking 3 of these before you have to take the full step to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Do the hit dice, are they static or are they rolled?
You roll, I roll, we take the highest of the 2.
All right. No, we'll go with the hit points.
Hit points, okay. So grab a D6 or roll it online. And I'll roll 2. Ooh, a 2. You better hope I do better. Come on, baby. I rolled a 4.
Works for me.
So 4. So that means you get half of your hit points. So let me just go to. I'm going to adjust it in my Hero Lab here so that there's your staggered advancement. You're taking your next level is going to be in Sorcerer, I take it, right?
Yep. I don't think I'm going to be switching at all. So.
Okay. All right. So pretty nice. That means you get plus your new hit point total is 13.
Do we take the average of the 2? Is that what it is?
No. It means you get, so it's half rounded up, I guess, because your
half would be 2 then, wouldn't it?
No, rounded up.
Why would it round up?
Because it's 5. You're getting 4 plus 1 from your Constitution is 5 hit points at level 2.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking the straight up dice roll.
Oh, no. Oh, and what's your favored? Oh, you know why? Hold on. It's because you're getting what favored bonus are you taking next level? Do you want +1 hit point, +1 skill point, or +1 spell known?
Skill point.
Okay, then you're getting +2 hit points. So you'll be level 12.
I said skill point, not hit point.
I know. That's why I'm saying you're getting 2 hit points. The reason it was calculating it at 3, you round everything down in Pathfinder normally. So the hit points you're going to get at level 2 are 4 plus your Constitution bonus of +1. The reason it was reading in Hero Lab as 3 hit points was because it was assuming you were taking +1 hit point as your favored class bonus. So that's fine. So then, so you got now 12 hit points. So let's quickly adjust your character sheet here. That's great stuff. So anyway, for those, I'll actually just quit the broadcast here now. So for those listening at home, let me get out of Roll20 in the game because that way my camera doesn't fuck up. And I'm going to turn it back on. Boom. Boom. Right. So for those listening at home, for this introductory or kind of prequel session with Allure of Alira. James, thanks so much for playing tonight, too. I know this was a pickup game, so this was a lot of fun.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was really fun getting ourselves into Torch as well. I really can't wait for this. It's going to be excited for when this campaign is actually kicking off in a proper fashion. So that's awesome. As always, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding tonight's session, or if we fucked up something in the rules. We don't play Pathfinder very much, so we are trying to make sure we're running the rules correctly. But if you notice us doing something wrong, please don't hesitate to leave a comment, and we will correct our course going forward. Otherwise, we will see you again soon for the first full session, I guess, in a week's time of Iron Gods. Thanks. See you soon.